to our session on service commerce. This is actually an area where Josh and the team at Booker have actually coined the term. And this is a topic that I'm very excited about because it's very foundational to the local commerce universe that Abid and I introduced this morning, serving SMBs on deeper levels than the traditional opportunity around advertising and marketing. And Booker has their kind of unique flavor of how they're tackling that corner of the market. But it's also interesting in the size of the service commerce opportunity. The last decade, there's been so much attention paid to e-commerce. If you look at service commerce, it's many factors greater, and Josh is actually going to spend some time quantifying that. So we're going to hear a lot of great examples of how Booker is really tackling this, and I think some good kind of telling signs about where the opportunity lies. So we'll hear from Josh for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then we'll move into an open discussion and take some of your questions. So please join me in welcoming Josh.
Great. Great. Well, thank you. It's great to be here. Service commerce has become something that I'm very passionate about, and I'm excited to speak about and share some of the stats of things that we're seeing happening in the market. I think all of us are touched by this in one way, shape, or form. If you think about the last month and probably how many things you have ordered online, whether it was food delivery or you got in an Uber or you bought a restaurant reservation or maybe even had alcohol delivered to your house through Drizzly. All of those things are happening right now. And as we've seen the market evolve, we've really looked at kind of what is the concept of service commerce and what really defines it. And there's a lot of pieces that tie in both from the advertising side, which is really about driving people in an offline fashion to receive a service. And on another way, it's looking at the businesses and providing them the tools that they need to really make themselves bookable and searchable online. So we put together a quick definition here, and we say local service commerce is the culmination of online and offline marketing efforts that drive offline transactions, because again, services are delivered offline, and it's primarily done through bookings and appointments. And it's all of the tools that are encompassed that are necessary to be able to deliver on that. So if you think about your typical service business, and I'll use a salon as an example, because everybody gets their hair cut, so it should be something that is fairly relevant to everyone in the room. In order for them to be able to sell services online, they actually have to manage everything that's happening in their store as well. They have to know who's working when, what services do they provide, how long do those services take. In many cases, they compensate their employees differently based on the services that they're providing, so that has to be factored in. Sometimes there's different equipment they need for the services, there's different rooms, there's different chairs. So all of that goes into just determining the availability. Then beyond that, it's tracking every customer, every transaction, every marketing message that goes out so that they can really get a holistic view of their business and understand what's happening. Historically, a lot of these businesses have really been offline. They've been working with pen and paper, they've been working with legacy systems that are completely disconnected from the web, or they're working with individual point solutions. And when you have a point solution for, say, for marketing or for CRM or for point of sale, it really doesn't give you the ability to understand everything that's happening within that particular service merchant. And so that's something that Booker does, and there's other businesses that have vertical solutions. And we'll talk a little bit about the size and the scope of the market as we go through this. So number one, as Mike was saying, that service commerce is actually larger than e-commerce. The service industry actually makes up about 60% of the US GDP. We put together these stats with our investors, Bain Capital Ventures, and you can see that in the first one, this is talking about total sales that happen in e-commerce-based businesses versus the total sales of services. It's about a 5 times bigger opportunity. And when you look at the actual software that's sold, because that's what we do, is we sell the software to power those businesses, it's about a 3 times bigger opportunity. So when you think about how big this market is, it's quite large, and there's really not a lot of players on the service side that have gotten recognition or that have had significant exits. When you look at OpenTable is probably the one that most folks recognize. They've been around for over 15 years now, and really were a pioneer in online booking and bringing people from an online acquisition vehicle to an offline service fulfillment. Another part that's astounding is how big the marketing spend is for these businesses. These stats we worked on with BIA Kelsey to show really how big this is for your average service business. $42 billion in 2015 advertising. That number is absolutely staggering. Even more so when you think about the fact that most of these businesses have no idea about how well their marketing efforts are performing. If you ask a typical SMB, especially in services that maybe ran a Groupon, How'd that Groupon perform? Well, they're going to know what the top line number is, but if you ask them, well, how many of those customers that bought that Groupon were existing customers? How many of those people came back? How many of those, what's the lifetime value? What was the ROI on that spend? They've got absolutely no idea. So that's one of the things that, that we see as a change that's happening is really by uniting all of those point solutions and functionality on one platform, really for the first time ever, businesses have an incredible insight as to where they should be spending their money and how efficient that marketing spend is. It's also something that we think is very relevant for people in this room that are selling advertising services, because it also will help you be more targeted in what you sell. Now, in terms of the market, we pulled together a lot of stats. This wasn't easy work. We worked with Kelsey on this as well, and a lot of surveys. And we basically divided the service market into two buckets. One is how many people are just solopreneurs, meaning that they really don't have any employees. Very small business. I think people understand the term VSB. And so that's kind of that category. And if you take out the ones that have less than $25,000 in revenue, which are folks that we typically don't target, and I think that most people in the room don't target of that size, you're still looking at 7.5 million businesses that fall into that category. Now, if you jump on the other side and you say, okay, well, let's look at the ones that are employers, that total pool is about 7.5, but then if you take it down below 99 employees, because typically that's more of kind of the mid-market enterprise, you're looking north of, 5 million customers there, so for a total of about 13.5 million. Now, if you pull out the restaurants and you pull out other non-service-based businesses, you still wind up around 10 million businesses in the U.S. That are a target for service commerce type tools. Now, if we look at all of the vertical players that are out there, there's some folks that focus on health, wellness, and beauty, and some people that are in automotive and in dental and so forth. There's only about 500,000 of those that actually have a fully integrated system. There's probably more that have individual point solutions, but the market opportunity is really huge. And so this hopefully sets the stage for some of the things that I'll touch on in terms of the relevancy. So first of all, you've got the market size, which are the actual merchants. Now what's happening is that some pretty major players are coming into the market and really trying to push the sale of services online. Not sure if you've all seen that Google recently launched integrated bookings in their knowledge panel on the right-hand side of search. So if you know the place that you're searching for, you type in, Josh's Barber, it's going to pull up with the pictures and with the reviews, and then right below that is going to be a booking functionality. Now this is huge. This is something that Google and Booker have been talking about for a long time together, and it finally came to fruition. And so for people that are working with Google and that are selling ads, this is going to become a very relevant opportunity for you, because you will have the ability to sell ads that help drive bookings. Second part is that other players are coming into this, and they're all attacking it from kind of a different angle. So everybody has seen Amazon has gotten into local services. First it started with if you bought a TV and you wanted somebody to come over and hang that TV, that they would offer that to you. This morning I looked at the list of the services that they're offering, and it's mostly home services, but there are things in there now like Pilates instruction and music lessons and dog walking and dog grooming. And so they're really expanding kind of that waterfront, but they want to leverage their membership base and really control that transaction, set the prices, and try to kind of control that. Where somebody like Yelp announced, I think it was over a year ago, we were one of their launch partners, the Yelp platform. And so what they're doing in that instance is that they're working with providers like Booker to basically integrate our merchants into the booking flow, so that somebody can go onto Yelp, they can find a merchant, and then they can book the service in a very seamless process. So that's, again, a bit of a different model than what you see with Amazon and what you see with Google. And then Living Social just recently launched an app that's a beauty booking app. And so that's something that for Living Social members, it's a controlled experience, and it's merchants that are signing up for this opportunity with Living Social. Now, in the daily deal space, Groupon, was probably the one that really revolutionized the sale of services online. They were the first to really get into the market and start selling things like, spa packages and haircuts and yoga packages and so forth. And they even bought a scheduling company that has been integrated in some of their point-of-sale functionality. I'll talk a little bit more about kind of standalone scheduling and how that's different than what we call a full-service commerce platform. You have Square that did something similar. They also bought a scheduling system, integrated it into their point-of-sale. Other players like PingUp and Single API are working with booking companies and platforms like us to aggregate the inventory and then integrate that with publishers. So there's a lot of different ways that folks are coming into the market, and then Swipely in the restaurant space just announced that they're trying to become more of an operating system for restaurants. And the idea there is that they have a lot of the data that's coming through on the back end through payments, and they can integrate with point of sale systems to actually see things like what was on the ticket, what is somebody buying, who was buying that, and then surfacing a lot of that information for the merchant to be able to make a decision. So a lot of these things that are happening out in the out in the market by players that have major footprints with SMBs. But one of the other things that we're seeing is really the rise of marketplaces that are coming in, and they're vertically specific marketplaces. So HomeAdvisor, I think that they're here, obviously been around for a while, but that model is evolving over time to have a lot more tied in directly with booking. They also bought a platform business that's specialized for home services. Folks like Handy that are focusing really on kind of home cleaning. I'm not sure if they're here in Denver yet, but in New York you see their ads all over the subways. Or folks like Your Mechanic who are focused on automotive repair. And so all of these apps that are very vertically specific are coming out. I just saw this morning Thumbtack became the latest unicorn, raised $125 million at north of $1 billion valuation. Service is out there. Pro.com is working with Amazon. So a lot of these are coming into the market, and it's been interesting to see the articles that are coming out about, what does this mean for search? So how is this going to impact Google if I'm downloading an app that's where I'm going to all the time to book a particular service or to book a person? Obviously, we've seen what's happened with Uber in the taxi industry in New York, where I live now. Medallions for the taxis used to be over $1 million. I think the last one traded at like 750,000, so 25–30% decline there. And it's having disruption. This is absolutely happening. And the biggest part of it is because that's really what consumers are expecting. When you think about the evolution of e-commerce and of service commerce over time, it used to be you were kind of eccentric if you actually bought an airline ticket online. I remember that back in like the late 90s, that nobody was doing it. You still had your travel agent that you'd call up and book your ticket. Now everybody's doing everything online. OpenTable obviously kind of hit the scene in the early 2000s and started scaling in mid 2000s, and now have really a big monopoly on the white tablecloth market. There's a lot of new things that are coming out. I read a saying the other day that there's now an on-demand app for everything that your mother used to do for you. So you can get your house cleaned, and you can get your laundry and your dry cleaning and everything picked up. And it really seems like those are, that's happening, across the board. Now, while that's been happening at the SMB level, they're still dealing with a lot of tools. Like their business practices that have existed and have evolved over time really haven't seen the tool set evolve with them as well. We see at Booker 30% of our sales are coming from pen and paper. So people still coming off of pen and paper, doing manual invoices, having point of sale systems that are completely disconnected. And the way that the market is evolving, you've probably seen this concept of a merchant OS, and it's a new operating system that's coming out. And really for a service-based business, all of that starts with scheduling. It's everything that's needed to power the scheduling, and that's also online booking. So we talk about booking is really the consumer-facing side, scheduling is the merchant-facing side. You need to know who your customers are that are showing up. You need to provide kind of anytime and anywhere access. And importantly, in a service-based business, you have to have a point of sale that supports the use cases for a service-based business. Typically, that's things like selling appointments and classes and series and packages and memberships. And if you sell a membership, it's got to tie to your CRM record so that when you go to schedule it, it knows automatically that you get that class for free, or you get a 15% discount on product, or you can bring your buddy for free on Tuesday night. All of that's tied in within the system, and then obviously the analytics layer that sits on top of that to be able to enable it. I'm saying this concept here about standalone scheduling is insufficient, with no disrespect to our scheduling brethren that are in the audience. But we started out as a simple scheduling system, and what we found is that it doesn't address the use case for most businesses. They have these real-world needs about managing their staff and managing compensation and selling series and packages and memberships and looking at all of that and how it ties in on the back end. And it's just something that the simple scheduling systems can't manage. And so I think that as a lot of folks are looking at scheduling solutions for their merchants or for integrating with, I'd encourage you to really look at the whole ecosystem ecosystem and understand what merchants are actually using on a day in and day out basis. And one of the other things that we're seeing that's happening real time right now is really the evolution of these operating systems into marketing systems, because we're effectively the system of record for these businesses. We know all their customers, we know all of their availability, we know their future demand and occupancy and utilization. We can help them surface that for booking online. We can then afterwards send out targeted based offers when we know that somebody hasn't been back in a while, or if we know that there's a low utilization rate on a particular day. We can get certified ratings and reviews because we knew if you actually came in and took that service from a particular person. We can send out booking reminders. We can get refer a friend functionality completely integrated within the platform. And so that's something that over time really provides a fully different ecosystem of tools for these merchants and opportunities for people that are selling marketing services to them. So I had to laugh because earlier there was the reference of the Holy Grail, and that's something that that I think is also coming right now with service commerce, and that opportunity is online to offline attribution. And that's one thing that if you think about how e-commerce started scaling with Google and the checkout pixels and everything else, once you could do attribution of where that customer came from what affiliate site they came in, they bought the widget, and you can attribute it back, you're going to keep spending at that particular site. Well, when it comes into online to offline for services, the best that Google can do is tell you how many impressions or how many clicks you get. They can't actually tell you what drove a sale. But if you're able to follow that booking all the way through from the booking to the check-in to the checkout and tag that at any one of those different spaces, you can actually tell a merchant what marketing channels are working, and you can get down into the campaigns, you can get down into the keywords that they're buying. There's a lot of opportunity within this particular area that's really just becoming a possibility now. So how do you take advantage of this? A few ideas. One is if you're a directory or a publisher and you don't already have online booking, it's time to get with the times. That's what customers are looking for. That's what merchants want. They want to be out in front, and that's kind of, I would say, the 101 right now. Number two is really having the ability to track and prove that your marketing efforts are working. And you can do that through these type of attribution tools that are available in systems like Booker. It also helps you to sell more of your own marketing related offerings. So it could be Facebook posts, it could be other social media, it could be ads. We heard earlier about buy buttons being put up in various areas. So that's another opportunity that's happening. Very soon you will see appointments showing up in ads. It's just around the corner. There's the ability to sell and bundle SaaS offerings as part of some of your offerings to increase retention and to increase revenue. So those are just some quick thoughts on ways that businesses can and certainly some are taking advantage right now of the service commerce opportunity. And with that, I'm going to go over to Mike.
Take a seat, Josh. Thank you. So we're actually going to be taking audience questions. You can either raise your hand, we'll get a mic to you, or you can ask a question through the conference app or through Twitter. Use the hashtag SMBQ. But I'll kick things off. Very interesting stuff. I love the Holy Grail quote. Another famous quote in the local space, as you probably know, is the John Wanamaker. I know half my ad dollars are wasted, I just don't know which half. So it's really that offline attribution that gets to that. But I want to go to some of the numbers that you presented. 500,000 small businesses that are using scheduling software out of a total addressable market of roughly 10 million, which is about 5% penetration. So that other 95%, it seems to me that's a double-edged sword. It's a massive addressable market. What are the challenges in getting to that? Is it the legacy systems you mentioned, or the people using those kind of point solutions as opposed to integrated? What are you finding is the challenge in getting at that?
Yeah, I think it's the challenges that everybody faces in SMB marketing and sales. First of all, it's just actually identifying them and reaching them, and making sure that they stay in business, because obviously this segment has a good degree of folks that go out of business. The other part is really getting them to migrate off of legacy systems, because what I showed you there was kind of a depiction of a lot of point solutions, but for the folks that have integrated systems, they're all systems that have been around for 15, 20 years. They probably spent $50,000 to $100,000 buying them up front, and there's a bit of resistance to change. And in some cases there's a lock-in on the data where you actually can't get out the legacy data, the customer information, the old staff information. Maybe they have gift cards that they sold, and you can't get that information out. So it kind of locks them in, and they've got to decide to take a jump at some point.
Sure. Now, having many different point solutions as an SMB almost seems antithetical to what all the data indicate to us of how SMBs operate. They usually want simplicity. So more of an integrated approach makes a lot of sense. Along those lines, where are you going next? It seems like you're constantly building out. You mentioned working with Swipely in terms of payments. What are the adjacent services that make sense to have orbiting your kind of core service that add value and integration and all-in-one, one-stop shop appeal, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so you have to make the decision on what makes sense to build, buy, or partner.
Yep.
And so over time, we've started mapping that out. First thing that we did, we have integrated payments, and so that's that's something we've been doing for 3 years. We just did a investment with First Data coming in, so soon we're going to have First Data as one of our partners. We also now sell a standalone merchant app, like a consumer-facing app that we're doing in a partnership rather than building that. We also have some other marketing relationships where we've decided to partner and then pull that data back into Booker. But then in other cases, we've done like our own analytics systems on customer retention and staff performance and things like that, where it made more sense for us to build it. And so it really kind of comes down to what the customers are looking for and how is it more expensive to build it or time to market, and then how much do you want to have that integrated with your platform or as a standalone.
So let's talk about another benefit, and this is something that we talked about in the opening session this morning, which is that one traditional pain point in local, and especially for sellers of local advertising or marketing, is high churn rates. And we're talking about something here that works on deeper operational levels, therefore the switching cost is higher.
Right.
It's harder to turn off your scheduling system than it is to turn off a marketing campaign. Are you finding that to be true, and what are you seeing in terms of the retention benefits that you guys are able to bring to the table?
Yeah, so the numbers that we see on retention on marketing services kind of broadly, seem to be churn in the 3 to 6% a month. Booker's churn is about 1.5 points, so it's much less. As you say, the product is very sticky. It's something that people are in every day of the week. They turn on I would say that they flip their open sign open, they go log into Booker, and they're living in that system for 8-10 hours a day. And so they're checking people in, they're running their payroll, they're running staff performance reports, customer reports, and so it's something where they can see the value that's happening right there. But the flip side of it is that there's a cap on what they're willing to spend on that value as well. And so we sell, I think we talked earlier about what our average ticket is. We sell for about $100 to $150 a month, and then we have add-on services where we make money, like merchant processing and the app and some other marketing-related services.
Now, the per-month pricing is also interesting too, in that it's flat, it's simple. That's another thing that SMBs like, is that simplicity in pricing, and BI Kelsey data certainly indicate that. But that goes back to another point we talked about in the morning session, which was the kind of SaaS model that's been so successful at the enterprise level in terms of having favorable economics in high retention, recurring revenue. Have you found that to be the case? It's almost like you're bringing a SaaS, to the small business world. So what are you finding about that in terms of its advantages in recurring revenue, retention, all of that good stuff? And is your pricing, you mentioned 150 a month as one price point. Can you unpack that a little bit further, the whole suite?
Yeah, so I think that the first part is that SMBs are adopting SaaS now, and I remember as I first got into this business 5 years ago, reading the Gartner reports about how many SMBs, how the migration of SaaS sales was going to come from enterprise down into SMBs. And in the early days, it was actually tough to convince somebody that they wanted their data in the cloud and that it was a benefit to have anytime, anywhere access, and you're going to be able to access it on your mobile phone. That almost sounded like you were talking like you were from the Jetsons at that point. But it's really happening, and I think now the conversation with the SMBs has gone from basically, if you have an installed solution, they don't even want to talk to you because they're all thinking about the cloud and the future. So in terms of pricing, it's really, it's interesting. In enterprise SaaS, most of those are multi-year contracts or at least annual contracts. When you get into SMB SaaS, you have to sell on a monthly basis because that's kind of what the market is. They want to get in, they want to test it, they want to try it out, see if it works, and then also see if they're getting value from it. And so that's one of the things that we really try to move is to demonstrate how is Booker driving value, whether that's marketing or it's staff retention or the number of appointments that they're getting. beginning. And so I think that that's kind of a common thread among any of the SaaS opportunities out there is that you really have to have it priced right. You have to show that you're driving value, and you have to do things that whatever you can to retain the customers, because the acquisition cost, as everybody in here knows, to get an SMB online and up and running, you don't earn that back typically, for at least 12 months, if not longer. So if they're churning out in 6-9 months, it's not a profitable deal.
Classic pain point in local with the kind of difficult economics and the margins that get squeezed so quickly. Now, among the remaining 9.5 million SMBs that are in that addressable market, let's talk about a vertical breakdown. In terms of the types of companies you work with, it's probably usual suspects. You mentioned salons, appointment-based businesses. The remaining marketplace, where do you see the most growth, vertically speaking?
Well, a ton going on in home services right now. You see that happening with people attacking it from a lot of different ways. I also think automotive is very ripe for disruption, especially on the new car dealer side. Those are really locked in with companies like ADP and Reynolds that have very legacy, almost like mainframe style systems. And so I think that there's a lot of disruption that's going to happen there. And then certainly that's going to be coming down more into the independent auto repair locations as well.
Very appointment-based, and also very hungry for new types of leads based on the margins in the types of products and services that they're offering. So we are about out of time. I don't see audience questions. Charlie? Nope. Okay, well, great. So we're about out of time, but I want to give you the last word in terms of any kind of tactical or last word type of advice for this audience of what you've learned the most recently and what you're seeing out there in terms of opportunity. Yeah,
I mean, we're really seeing that the service-based businesses themselves are clamoring for solutions, and it's not just what we've typically sold, which is the kind of operating system, helping you run your business more efficiently. They're now really looking at how to turn that data into marketing solutions. So for people that have large audiences or who have the ability to move marketing products, there's going to be a lot of different ways that can be done. I mentioned Google now having booking there. You see what Yelp's doing. There's other search engines that are going to be getting into this, and directories. And so I think it's a place that's ripe for opportunity now.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. Please join me in thanking Josh.